David Thoreau once said that many men go fishing all of their lives without knowing that it is not the fish they are after. When I was a kid, my dad would often take me and my sister fishing. We would sometimes travel for hours so he could teach us how to cast out, be patient, and catch fish. However, to say that I thoroughly enjoyed the long hours in the baking sun, the depriving me of my precious free time, and the sitting around waiting for any semblance of action was a long shot to say the least. After failed attempts to catch fish, my dad would finally give in to me and my sister's pleas and finally take us home. I have many memories like this. I always felt defeated that we had wasted all of those hours and left without a single nibble on our lines. What was the point, I would ask myself. That all changed about a year ago when my dad instructed me, my sister, and my mom that we would be taking a trip to Glenwood Springs. I was really excited. I hadn't been there in almost 10 years, and my mind was whirring with ideas of what we would do there as a family. Unfortunately, due to last-minute unforeseen circumstances, my mom and my sister were both unable to go, but they instructed my dad and I to go anyway without them. We arrived at Glenwood to be greeted with blue skies and sunny clouds. After lunch, we decided we would go fishing. To our disappointment, the skies were turning a dark gray and the wind picked up. My dad, being the way that he is, was not deterred by the weather conditions, and we made our way toward the destination. My dad helped me get set up, and then walked around to the other side of a small cove. I remember standing there facing a large valley with a river flowing through it. It was nearly overflowing with all the snow that had melted recently. The wind was blasting down the valley in my direction, and it was nearly blowing me down. I remember at one point, there was a large gust of wind that nearly ripped my hat off, so I promptly flipped it around and secured it against my head. It was freezing, the wind was gusting, and I was wearing shorts, and I was loving it. Adrenaline was pumping through my veins. It was a struggle just to keep standing up, but all my attention was focused on the bright green bobber that was being thrashed around by the tumultuous water. Occasionally there was a splash in the small cove, and we knew that there were fish in there trying to take a break from the torrential waters of the river. That further added to my excitement. Eventually, the wind began to let up, and my dad and I swapped spots a couple of times. I heard my dad exclaim, and I snapped to attention as I saw him now leaning back, struggling to hold on to his now bowed rod. I made my way around the small cove as quickly as I could, trying to maintain my balance. I finally made it to the other side. I walked closer to my dad, and I placed my rod on some rocks. My eyes were flashing between my dad and the fish that I could see now, not 5 feet from my boots. I struggled to get my phone out of my coat pocket, and when I finally hit the record button, I looked back at my dad, who was now holding his rod in one hand. The fish was no longer there, and I knew it had gotten away at the last second. My dad was pretty upset that he let the fish get away. We kept fishing for a little while longer, but after a while we decided it would be best if we called it quits. I realized we had been there for 5 hours. Those were the fastest 5 hours I had ever experienced. I had so much fun. I realized just how addicting fishing was. And although we left empty-handed, I was so grateful that I was able to experience it. And it is a memory that I will never forget. A couple of months later, my family took a trip to Steamboat. This time, my sister and mom were able to come as well. However, my dad and I wouldn't turn down the opportunity to go fishing again. We decided we would take a separate route and go fishing on the way up there. We got to the first spot and started unpacking the car. My dad came around the back and said, "I'm getting eaten alive out here." I realized that he was talking about the mosquitoes, which I too had noticed buzzing around my legs. We left the parking area and started walking down a small trail that was nearly overgrown. At this point, we were getting absolutely swarmed by mosquitoes. I don't think I had ever seen more mosquitoes in my life. My dad turned around and we both booked it back to the car. We threw our gear in the back and we drove off as quick as we could. My legs already felt itchy and I knew I had been bitten several times. We drove for a couple of miles and decided to fish one more spot. This time we were able to get down to the water's edge without experiencing any bugs. I was immediately blown away with just how beautiful this place was. To our left was a small island in the middle of two rivers that combined to create the single one we would fish, followed by a modest mountain range capped with the slightest amount of snow. To our right, the river curved and meandered through some trees, giving way to a narrow opening, where a small homestead lived. It was truly beautiful. My dad instructed me to climb onto a log that protruded over the water's edge. Surprisingly, it was relatively stable, so I sat down ungracefully and cast out. My dad was simply standing a little further down, getting his rod ready. After about 30 minutes, we swapped spots and changed bait. There was an eagle that flew overhead, landing in a nest on the top of a very tall tree. I couldn't believe just how picturesque this spot was. It was an amazing feeling to be out there with just my dad and nothing to distract us. After a couple of hours, we decided it would be best if we got on our way. Again, we left empty-handed, but I felt changed. I had never felt so invested in something. It was truly an eye-opening and enlightening experience. So, to bring it back to Henry David Thoreau's quote, "Many men go fishing all of their lives without knowing that it is not the fish they are after." I can say now that I couldn't agree more. I realized what my dad was trying to instill in me all those years ago. It is not about catching fish, it never was. I now realize that the fun of catching fish didn't actually lie in catching the fish, but it was the experience that you had along the way. And now I was fishing there alone with just my dad, and I felt like my experience with fishing had come full circle. To be surrounded by nothing but nature was encouraging and consoling. I realized just how pleasant the act of fishing was. To be outdoors with nothing but a rod in hand, surrounded by loved ones and sometimes strangers, working towards something that you are well aware might not happen. Sometimes we stand around for hours. Sometimes we leave empty-handed, utterly and completely defeated. We often don't get what we want, but that is exactly the point of fishing. Thank you.